Right now, there is $317 trillion of debt across the world. The number is so extreme it is hard to even comprehend. If you started counting $1 per second, it would take you 10 million years of non-stop counting to reach 317 trillion. The United States owes $36 trillion. China owes 15 trillion. Japan owes 10 trillion. Germany, the United Kingdom, France, the list goes on. Every country, every government, every central bank is in debt. The global economy is built on a giant pyramid of debt, and that pyramid grows every second. Now stop and think about this question. If everyone is in debt, who is the creditor? Did we borrow from an extraterrestrial civilization, or is this massive number an illusion? The answer to this question reveals the darkest secret of the modern financial system. And that secret shows who truly owns every single cent in your pocket. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a reality written at the intersection of mathematics, history, and power. In the next 15 minutes, what I am about to show you is the anatomy of a mechanism that is never taught in school, yet pulls money out of your pockets every day. $317 trillion is not just a big number. It is more than 3 times the total value of all goods and services produced by every country in a single year. Global GDP is around $105 trillion. That means, as a planet, even if we consumed nothing for 3 straight years and everyone worked nonstop, we still could not pay this debt. But the real question is this: how did we get here? In 1980, US debt was only $1 trillion. In 44 years, it multiplied by 36. In 2000, China owed $1 trillion. Now it owes 15. Japan's debt was $2 trillion in 1990. Now it is 10. Every country multiplied its debt by 2, 3, 5, decade after decade. This is not an accident. This is the design of the system. Because the modern financial system is built on one principle: debt must never be paid off. It must keep growing. Debt means control. Debt means power. And those who hold that power are pulling the lives of 8 billion people with invisible strings. You are told that debt is a bad thing. If you have credit card debt, they say you are irresponsible. If you have a mortgage, they tell you to be careful. But strangely, when countries borrow trillions of dollars, they call it economic growth. When corporations borrow billions, they call it a leverage strategy. While the rich get richer by borrowing, you are told to avoid debt. Do you see the contradiction? Because for you, debt is a chain. For them, it is a tool. You cannot find the answer to the $317 trillion question without understanding what debt is in the modern system. Most people believe money is borrowed from banks. You go to a bank, they lend you the money deposited by customers, you pay it back with interest. Sounds logical, right? No, that is not how it works at all. When a government or a central bank borrows money, that money does not exist before the act of borrowing. The act of borrowing itself creates the money. When the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, or any central bank presses a button, it creates new money without gold, silver, or any physical value behind it. They type numbers onto a screen, and in that moment, money appears out of nothing. This is called fiat money. In Latin, it means let it be. The central bank says, let there be $1 trillion, and there it is. But here is the mathematical trap. The system creates only the principal. It never creates the interest that sits on top of it. Listen carefully, because this is critical. When a government borrows $1 trillion at 5% interest, by the end of the year it must repay $1,050 billion. But only $1 trillion was created in the system. The $50 billion needed to pay the interest does not exist anywhere in the world. Not in any vault, not in any account, not in any wallet, because it was never created. So how do you find that money? There's only one way. You borrow more in the future. When you take on new debt, new money is created, and you use that new money to pay the interest on the old debt. But now the new debt also has interest, and that interest also does not exist in the system. You enter an endless loop. This is not a programming bug. This is a feature embedded in the core of the system. Debt must always be greater than the money supply because interest is never created. Mathematically, it is impossible to pay off all debt. That is why no country can ever fully pay off its debt. That is why U.S. debt was $1 trillion in 1980 and has reached $36 trillion today. That is why the debt ceiling is raised every year and politicians present it as necessary for economic stability. Because if you do not take on new debt, you cannot pay the interest on the old debt, and the system collapses instantly. The system is designed to keep you in debt, not them, you. This game is not new. It began 332 years ago in 1694. King William III of England needed money to finance his wars. The treasury did not have enough gold, and the people were already rebellious, so he could not raise more taxes. And at that exact moment, a group of merchants offered the king a shocking deal. We will give you money we create from nothing, with no backing. In return, we want interest forever, secured by a portion of England's tax revenues. The king accepted. The Bank of England was officially founded in 1694. The bank was established with £1.2 million of capital and lent the same amount to the king. But that money did not come out of the bank's vault, because there was no such money in the vault. The bank created it out of nothing by using royal bonds as collateral. What did they get in return? The English government granted this private company a monopoly on issuing banknotes and agreed to pay 8% annual interest from tax revenues. The genius of this arrangement was simple. A group of private owners built a money creation mechanism that had nothing of its own, yet was backed by the power of the kingdom. They were no longer just printing money. They were deciding when money would be created, how much, and who would receive it. And therefore, they were deciding the fate of the empire. The king sat on the throne, but the real power belonged to the owners of the Bank of England. In the 19th century, this model was perfected by the Rothschild family and spread across Europe. Meyer Amschel Rothschild began as a modest lender in Frankfurt, but he discovered the real power of finance. The true power does not belong to the one who prints money. It belongs to the ones who decide who gets it. Rothschild sent his 5 sons to 5 strategic financial centers in Europe. Amschel to Frankfurt, Salomon to Vienna, Nathan to London, Karl to Naples, James to Paris. These 5 brothers built the most advanced intelligence network on the continent. With carrier pigeons, fast couriers on horseback, encoded messages, they learned about political and military developments days, even weeks, before anyone else. Information has always been the most valuable capital. And the most critical strategy was this. The Rothschilds financed both sides of wars. During the Napoleonic Wars, they extended credit to both France and England. This was not only profitable, it was the source of power. No matter who won, they multiplied their wealth. In 1815, at the Battle of Waterloo, this strategy produced its most striking example. Nathan Rothschild used his courier network to learn of Napoleon Eames' decisive defeat, 24 hours before anyone else in London. As the only man who knew the outcome, he entered the London Stock Exchange and calmly began selling British government bonds. The market interpreted this as a sign that Napoleon had won. Panic began. Everyone started selling. Prices collapsed. And at that exact moment, Nathan Rothschild bought all the bonds back through unseen agents. The next day, when Wellington's victory was officially announced, bond prices surged. In a single day, Rothschild became the owner of a significant portion of England's national debt. That day, Nathan Rothschild did not merely make money. By controlling England's money supply, he became the hidden ruler of the empire. A quote often attributed to him summarizes this power perfectly. "I do not care who sits on the throne of the British Empire. The one who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and that one is me." This is not just a historical anecdote. It is a formula that explains the true nature of money. Control the creation of money, control the nation. Today, at the top of the creditor list, we no longer find only families. We find massive structures like BlackRock. BlackRock now manages more than $10 trillion in assets. The figure is larger than the annual economic output of France, Germany, the United Kingdom, and Japan. $10 trillion is roughly 7 times the total value of all physical gold in the world. BlackRock is the largest shareholder of Apple, the largest shareholder of Microsoft. BlackRock is the largest owner behind Amazon, Google, Meta, Tesla, Nvidia, the most powerful technology giants of the modern world. BlackRock is the largest shareholder of Exxon, Chevron, Shell, the oil giants. BlackRock is the largest shareholder of JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup, the banks. When you wake up, you look at your Apple phone. You search on Google, you shop on Amazon. At night, you watch Netflix. In every moment of your life, BlackRock has a finger on the scale and you do not even notice. But BlackRock's real power lies in its artificial intelligence system called Aladdin. Aladdin manages $21 trillion of risk across the global financial system. It monitors, analyzes, and influences more than 7% of the world's stock markets. It understands your investment decisions better than you do because it predicts your behavioral patterns, your risk tolerance, and your future choices through mathematical models. And here's what is even more disturbing. BlackRock is not just an investment company. During the 2020 crisis, it was hired by the Federal Reserve to purchase bonds and assets. That made BlackRock both a player and a referee. The Fed consulted BlackRock on which assets to buy. BlackRock held those same assets in its own portfolios. It is an open conflict of interest, and yet nobody questioned it. Why? Because the system is so complex that to question it, you first have to understand it. And you not understanding it is exactly what the system wants. So how do the people who manage this vast wealth pay almost no taxes? The answer is 3 words. Buy, borrow, die. Buy, borrow, die. Here is how it works. Step 1, buy. Billionaires like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk take almost no cash salary. Their wealth sits in stocks. More than 90% of Bezos' wealth comes from Amazon shares. As long as they do not sell these shares, as long as they do not realize gains, they do not pay capital gains tax. Step 2, borrow. They need money to live daily life, to buy mansions, to fly in private jets. Billionaires pledge their shares as collateral and borrow from banks at extremely low interest rates. If you have $10 billion in stock, a bank lends you $1 billion at 2%. That loan is not taxed because it is not income. It is debt. While you live on that borrowed billion, your $10 billion in stock keeps appreciating. When the stock rises 10%, your portfolio becomes $11 billion, and you still have paid no taxes. When the loan ends, you take a new loan and refinance the old one. This cycle can run for a lifetime. Step 3, die. When a billionaire dies, their heirs inherit the shares, and the step-up in basis rule takes effect. This rule resets the cost basis of the shares to the market value at the time of death. So if someone bought Amazon shares at $10 per share in 1990 and held them until death when the share price was $180, the heirs are treated as if they acquired the shares at $180. All past gains, $170 per share, are never taxed. That is how billionaires live with tax rates lower than their own secretaries, even their own drivers. Warren Buffett's famous line captures it: "My tax rate is lower than my secretary's, and that is shameful." A 2021 report by ProPublica revealed that the 25 richest people in the United States increased their wealth by $401 billion between 2014 and 2018, yet paid only $13.6 billion in taxes. That is a tax rate of 3.4%. Meanwhile, a middle-class American loses 25 to 30% of income to taxes. This is a systematic transfer of wealth carved into law. The system may look perfect on paper, but the physical world is starting to rebel. Digital numbers can be manipulated forever, but physical metals do not lie. And the silver market is the weakest link in this manipulation. Silver is not just an investment. It is the most critical industrial metal of modern technology. From smartphones to solar panels, from 5G towers to missiles, from electric vehicles to medical devices, everything needs silver. A smartphone contains 0.35 grams. An electric vehicle uses 25 to 50 grams. A missile contains kilograms of silver. Annual demand for silver is 1.2 billion ounces, while mining supply is only 850 million ounces. The 350 million ounce gap is filled through recycling. But because more than 60% of silver is lost in industrial use, it cannot be recycled. That means the world consumes more silver every year, and the physical deficit grows. Yet silver's price has been suppressed by banks for 150 years. Major banks like JP Morgan sold hundreds of paper contracts for every ounce of physical silver, creating the illusion of infinite supply. On COMEX, 99% of silver contracts are closed without physical delivery. But the cracks are deepening. By the end of 2024, silver in COMEX warehouses was draining rapidly. Between November and December 2024, in just 47 days, 37.6 million ounces of silver vanished. That is more than 20% of total warehouse stocks. And something even more critical is coming from China. As of January 1st, 2026, China imposed export licensing restrictions on silver. China produces 17% of the world's silver. If China shuts down exports, Western solar panel production, 5G infrastructure, and the electric vehicle transition will slam into a physical wall. When silver's price breaks away from the paper market, technology stocks and energy transition dreams will face a mathematical reality. Digital promises, without physical metal behind them, are worth nothing. History reads like a handbook for how empires collapse. Rome destroyed its currency by reducing the silver content of the denarius. In its early period, the coins were 95% pure silver. By the year 250, that fell to 5%. The empire printed more money to finance its army, but money lost value with every new issue. Eventually, currency became so worthless that society returned to barter. Economic collapse dragged political collapse with it. In the 1920s, the Weimar Republic collapsed through hyperinflation. In 1929, the Great Depression exploded from excessive borrowing and speculation. In 2008, the mortgage bubble nearly destroyed the global financial system. Today, central banks are doing the same thing, only instead of silver, they use zeros on a keyboard. Since the 2008 crisis, the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, and the Bank of Japan created more than $25 trillion. Did that money not create inflation? It did. But that inflation accumulated in stocks, real estate, and asset prices. The rich became richer while the purchasing power of the middle class eroded. In 2026 and 2027, the world will face an everything bubble collapse larger than 1929 and 2008 combined. Stocks, bonds, and real estate will lose value at the same time. In past crises, when one asset fell, another rose. In 2008, when stocks collapsed, bonds were a safe haven. But this time, debt levels are so high that bonds are not safe either. The Federal Reserve has no room left to cut rates. In 2008, rates were 5.25% and were cut to near zero to revive the economy. In 2020, rates were already near zero, so direct money creation was required. Now, with debt at $36 trillion, the only option will be to devalue the currency and dissolve debt through inflation. That means a silent confiscation of the wealth of savers and cash holders. If you hold $100,000 in cash and inflation rises to 20% per year, your purchasing power will be cut in half in 2 years. The government will have taken half your wealth without collecting a single cent of tax. You think the will of the people is decided at the ballot box, but real decisions are made in central bank corridors by unelected technocrats. Central bank digital currencies, the CBDCs, will be the final stage of this control. China's digital yuan is the world's first full-scale CBDC and has already reached 260 million users. The European Central Bank is testing a digital euro. The Federal Reserve is working on a digital dollar. This money will be programmable. When the government gives you $1,000 in aid, it could code it so the money can only be spent on food. Where you can spend it, how much you can save, and even whether it has an expiration date will be decided by an algorithm. China's social credit system is a preview. One wrong comment and your score drops, and you cannot board a plane. Speeding reduces your score, and your child cannot enter good schools. The financial version of this system will be deployed globally through CBDCs. This is the end of financial sovereignty and the beginning of digital feudalism. In the Middle Ages, if you could not own land, you were not free. In the future, if you cannot own your money, if you cannot transact without permission from a central bank, you will not be free. Now, let's return to the beginning. If everyone is $317 trillion in debt, who is the creditor? The answer has layers. The first layer is central banks and major commercial banks. The Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, the Bank of Japan, and behind them, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Citibank. The second layer is asset managers like BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. These three are shareholders in each other and are the largest owners behind more than 90% of the world's S companies. The third layer is families whose names are rarely spoken but come from deep history. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, the Warburgs. These families are no longer directly visible, but they keep control through trusts, foundations, and holding companies. The fourth, and perhaps the most important layer, is the system itself. At this point, it is no longer individuals making decisions. It is algorithms. Artificial intelligence systems like Aladdin manage trillion-dollar portfolios and make decisions with a complexity no human can fully comprehend. But here's the truth. The creditors are you and people like you. The middle class, the working population, the taxpayers. The system put you into debt, exhausted you, and confused you. They never taught you the money system in school because you cannot enslave a population that understands the money system. History tells us this massive $317 trillion pyramid will be reset at some point through hyperinflation, war, or a debt jubilee. Unpayable debts are eventually destroyed. The only question is who pays the bill. So are you ready for this great reset? In the comments, tell me, is there a way to change the system, or is collapse inevitable? Should we move into physical assets, or is there a way out of the system? Subscribe to Dark Money Historian, because in the next video, what I will show you is even darker. I will explain in detail how billionaires use the buy, borrow, die strategy, which assets they are secretly buying, and how an ordinary person can protect themselves inside this system. 2026 is very close. Keep reading history's playbook with me, because the answers are not hidden in the future. They are written in the past.